So, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man has finally come out. This thing used to be called Spider-Man Freshman Year. It was supposed to be part of the MCU, like a prequel, and then it became like a MCU adjacent What If, but then it has become kind of a completely original thing with slight MCU-isms snuck in there. It's been a long time coming. This thing was announced like 3-4 years ago? A really long time ago, and it's just been stuck in some sort of development troubles ever since. There's been a lot of controversies before it even released relating to its art style, look, characters, decisions, and all of this kind of stuff, but now it's actually out and it can be judged based on its own merits. I recently have been reading through all of original Spider-Man, so I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for me to exercise some of that knowledge I've been cultivating and looking at adaptation with a fresh eyes. So this comes in a perfect time for me. So I really want to look at this Spider-Man through adaptational lens. What does it do as an adaptation to make itself stand out? How does it stay true to the originals? How does it change things? I really want to see what makes it tick and what choices it's making and why. It is young Peter Parker, young Spider-Man story. You've seen it a dozen times, so this show, it's trying to do it in a way that hasn't been done before, and this subversion is a very big part of the show's identity. That kind of, will probably lead to you either disliking it or liking it based on how much you're willing to go with it. So, for example, the origin still happens. Peter Parker is bitten by the radioactive spider, as he always is. But this time, instead of it happening on a science expo or something, he goes to school as he normally does, and during first day, it's like just a strange portal appears, and out of it comes presumably a multiversal Venom and multiversal Doctor Strange fighting. And during this fight, the radioactive spider comes through the portal, and that thing bites Peter Parker. So it's this really odd, different kind of way of him getting bitten by a spider. It is definitely like immediately you probably are going to have some emotions on it. How much do you like that concept? And on the other big part is this show basically doesn't really have that many Spider-Man characters. Like Peter's supporting cast in the school, his best friend is Nico from Runaways. Like that's not even a Spider-Man character. That's a Runaways character. And most of people probably are like, who is Nico? What is a Runaways? It's a book from I believe 2003 and has absolutely nothing to do with Spider-Man. It's actually going against what you'd expect. It's not casting Iceman, Johnny Storm, characters you'd expect who have that history. And you get other characters too. Like there's Lonnie Lincoln in this story, who is a Peter's friend. Lonnie Lincoln is definitely not a high schooler in the original comics. It's a very different thing. You would never expect him to be part of Peter's supporting cast, but here he is, an actual friend to Peter. This show is very in your face in it wanting to kind of push this character into a whole different new area. And again, up to you how much you're open to it. I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm weirded out by it, and I've in some cases find a little annoying to take a character and it's like, oh, what if the character wasn't the character? But your mileage may vary. So far, it's, I think, doing it pretty well overall. We'll see. It's still a little hesitant on it to calling it good, but it's like, okay, I'm willing to play along. It's like, you don't actually have really any villains in the first two episodes. Like you have some random crooks or robbers appearing. The main villain that has been so far, Norman Osborn, makes an appearance. He kind of, they do the MCU scene where, Peter walks into an apartment and Tony Stark is there, but this time it's Norman Osborn. They literally have the same exact scene here. And this then turns into Norman Osborn being a longer occurring character here. You have the main villain so far has been this dude with flamethrowers in his arms. I don't know who he's based on, at least it's not coming to me from the top of my head. I don't think they say his name, so he's just random pyromaniac. Maybe he'll end up being Pyro or something, or I don't know, Firefly. Not really exciting villains. His design is also kind of these are everyone's design so far, this early Spider-Man. So Spider-Man wears this really raggedy, terrible costume, and so does this one villain he's fought. So again, early days, so it's really hard to judge, and the show is not putting a lot of focus on the villains, so that's fine. It's a lot of focus on just Peter Parker doing Peter Parker stuff, and I really like this because this part is my favorite part of Spider-Man. I wish there was more action. I think this could benefit from having more of an interesting villain, but that might just come in later once Act 1 is done and we've established all Peter Parker and the supporting cast problems. We'll see. This series does a very interesting thing with Peter, where he is in this series more of the Tom Holland spirit of the character, where instead of being kind of the angry hothead, really selfish character he's in the comics and traditionally is presented as, this is another one where he's just a really nice guy who just naturally is good. Even before he has powers, like during the multiverse fight, Nico is attacked by Venom, and without powers, Peter Parker throws a brick at Venom, tries to save Nico. Nico. There's like really two types of heroes, and I feel like this is something that modern Spider-Man has tried to reinvent for the character. Here he's naturally good, like Captain America. Captain America just jumps on a grenade. He doesn't need a motivation. It's just naturally something he's going to do. Superman just does the right thing no matter what. This Peter Parker is just good. He's just pure-hearted good. But to me, that is just fundamentally wrong. Spider-Man's at his core is not like that. He's more like Iron Man. Iron Man is naturally selfish, and these two characters actually have, that is their most important connection really as characters. They have to try to do the right thing. It is difficult. They even don't always know what the right thing is. To me, this is core of Spider-Man's character. This is the part that matters, not Uncle Ben. I don't care about Uncle Ben. I don't really care about the villains. I don't care about how he looks. But this, to me, is the most important part of Spider-Man that must be there. He must naturally not be a hero. He has to learn to be a hero. He must struggle with it. That can be anger, he can be nice, but he has to not know. It has to be a struggle. To me, I can't stand this Peter Parker, and I think the show misses that point, and I just can't look past it. I think it is downright terrible take on the character. Like seriously, if you watch the show, like why is this Peter Parker a hero? Like why does he go out and save people? Like why does he do any of it? Like the show doesn't really give him a strong motivation. In the Raven films, he does it out of guilt. In the original comics, he does it to help Aunt May with bills. He makes money through being Spider-Man. This version doesn't really have much of a motivation. He just gains the power, and next time we see him, he's swinging around. He's not motivated by Uncle Ben. That's not a thing as far as we can tell. He got Uncle Ben off screen before the series even starts, so he's not motivated by that. And even if it's the power responsibility lesson coming back to haunt him, I don't know, it's just much weaker if it happens before he gains the power. It's like, I don't really understand this version. Is he meant to be an adrenaline junkie? Is it a power fantasy for him? Like, why is he doing it? Or is he just naturally a good person? Like, what are we doing here? This version is also notably a lot less witty, and honestly, because he is so nice, he's just kind of boring to watch. I really think taking away all the edges and all the aggression, taking out everything imperfect about Spider-Man has led to a very boring take on the character. And this has been a growing complaint of mine, and I know I'm not alone. A lot of Spider-Man versions have gone down this road. Your Friendly, I'm Not Saying That full title, is not the first one, and I kind of have started to hate all of these takes. I can kind of look past MCU doing a different take because it's just one take that is doing it different, and we already had 2 movies, but Insomniac made him kind of a win, Ultimate Cartoon in 2017, and I just kind of am starting to really hate this take. It's not different. Like, that's the usual justification. It's a fresh take. Like, no, it's not. We've done this a lot of times. And it's fundamentally misunderstanding the character and his appeal. And, like the first guy, I can look past. Why is this like the 5th or 6th writer doing it wrong? Like, it's really annoying. Niceness and anxiety aren't relatable. They can be. But when every single quote-unquote fresh take does the same exact thing, writes the same exact Peter Parker, that's not fresh. That's just you all having the wrong idea who Spider-Man is. If you did Spider-Man the way comics did it, like the original take, that probably would be the most fresh take on Spider-Man in like 40 years. And that to me is just disappointing. I'm just so tired of this kind of take. I really do think this is the biggest problem in the show. This Peter Parker is just another one of those like so relatable because he's late all the time. Like they reuse he's hanging out somewhere and then he looks at his clock and it's like, oh my god, I'm late from whatever, and then he rushes out the door. This happens like 3 or 4 times in the first 2 episodes. Like they really reuse it, and come on, that's a bit lazy for it to happen that many times the same exact way. And he often doesn't even have a reason to be late. Why how did you not keep track of the time? Like he just is completely unable to. And again, it's hashtag relatable. It's something I just really don't like. And this Peter Parker is not an outcast as he usually is either. Again, it's trying to be different. Peter Parker kind of walks into being just boring and standard, and I feel like this kind of Peter Parker is already overdone, so it's not fresh. But they're also trying to do this thing where it's like, he's not an outcast as he usually is. He immediately makes friends with Nico and Lonnie, and he's in good graces with Pearl. I don't know who Pearl is, but the original Peter Parker, had more of a struggle. He didn't really have a whole lot of friends. He had conflict in school. Here, not a whole lot to it. Everyone's just nice to Peter, and Peter is nice back. It's really boring to watch. And again, this might develop over time. Maybe these people grow kind of resentful because Peter is not around. That's a very classic thing that happens a lot to Peter Parker. So that might happen, evolve as the series goes on. I'm just going based on the first 2 episodes. But so far, I strongly think this is one of my least favorite Peter Parkers. And I think it's the biggest problem for the show. In that, I do think there is an interesting thing where the art style of the show is... I remember people talked about the Ditko-looking art style. Even I kind of looked at it, was like, yeah, that doesn't look good. And then we found out the show was 3D instead of 2D. And I originally was worried for it because the writing obviously is not going to be original Ditko Peter Parker. Marvel kind of pretends that's just not a thing anymore because I guess he's too, like, I don't know, edgy, for modern audiences. They wanted a nice Peter to sell. So I thought I'd end up being an empty nut as an art style. Like, why make Ditko looking art style if you have no Ditko soul in it? To me, that's very frustrating. It's just you saying like, look at this show. It looks like a reference, so give us brownie points for that. And I hate that kind of reference. Now seeing the show, I do find the show has an original look. And once you see it in motion, I think it has a very original look. It has inspired to a degree by Ditko, but it is different. It has Ditko-isms in there, and clearly references, like Peter has his blue jacket with a yellow shirt, which is reminiscent of Ditko's original design. This Peter is small and thin like the original instead of the buff Giga Chad Peter later becomes during the Romita years. But the 3D does give it a unique look, and Peter looks, I don't know, everybody looks softer. Ditko designs were kind of grotesque and ugly with bad proportion, which works super well for what Ditko was going for. But this show goes for more or less ugly proportions, but just regular stylized look. Overall, the animation, like, it's a Saturday morning cartoon. Like, it's fine. It's not high budget, so it comes with issues. The facial animations are pretty bad at times, and like, if you look at the streets during the swinging scenes, there is nothing there, like not even people. But that's not really the show's fault. That's just what comes with small budget shows like this. You either can deal with it or you cannot. I will praise the show for trying to make it work, because it does try to compensate with things like cinematography. Peter talks about how hard it has been lately at the start of this show, which is followed by a shot of sad Aunt May with her wedding ring in frame, implication being Uncle Ben got Uncle Ben. There is this scene where there is a dolly zoom, and there are moments where the show splits the frame into comic panels and giving you multiple things going on at once. The shots really help the animation to punch above its budget. Maybe you can't get past that, but I do think the show deserves praise for making it work as best as it ever could. This is really well done. But animation, modeling, those things are expensive. This is best you're gonna get. I do think the action is fine. Like, the action is fast and it has weight. Strange at the start has a fight with the Venom, and I think that's really great. You get some really cool visuals. Like, he turns the school upwards, and it's like, the cape is flying around. It's really fun and cool stuff. Peter's movements, even outside of action scenes, can be really cartoony, fast and punchy. It's really great stuff. I do think, while the animation has been a little controversial, I guess, that's just not really the show's fault anymore. I will say, like, if Peter Parker is my least favorite thing, and I'm kind of like, it's like kind of cool animation. My favorite thing in the show, and I did not expect it, but this show gets kind of real at times. Like, there's a level of politics to it. It's actually really good. There's this scene where a lady robs a store because she's allegedly broke. Like, she breaks down in tears after getting caught. Now, assuming it's real, she could be lying and faking it. I don't know. Could be naive Peter being stupid. But, I like the idea that this is real. Spider-Man facing an actual morally gray dilemma. Somebody robbed, someone because they had to. They didn't have other choices. That's a difficult thing to throw at Spider-Man, and I really enjoy that. Again, could be lying, this could come back to haunt him, which, a lesson about being naive, but at the same time, I think it's a lot more interesting if she's just desperate. There's this scene where Peter actually dumpster dives. Like, we don't usually see dumpster diving. Like, it's usually mentioned in a lot of versions, but it's rarely seen, so credits for that. And then I will say, I fundamentally hate the concept of Lonnie Lincoln being a high schooler, but the show does open my mind to it. We get a scene where we follow Lonnie after school, and as he walks home, a cop starts to tail him. It's like when he gets home, he's kind of smart one. He has to help his brother out, and it feels real. I think it's by far the most interesting thing in the show so far. I could see this turning out well for him, and he actually is a story about him achieving his potential, but more likely is he either becomes resentful and goes down the wrong paths, or going down the wrong paths gets him what he wants, and he's willing to be the bad guy to help others out. I don't know how exactly they're gonna play it out. I am very curious and very interested in seeing this specific storyline. This is something that we usually don't get. Politics are a big part of Spider-Man's history. Some people pretend it's not, but it is, especially racial history. Like, Stan Lee was passionate about racial diversity. Like, this is undeniable part of Spider-Man's DNA from these Stan Lee years, and it's something that adaptations usually are scared of adapting. Like, none of the movies touch racial politics except maybe Spider-Verse slightly, but that's Miles Morales. It doesn't really count the same way. You know, you're never gonna see really the video games touch it. Like, Insomniac is gonna stay away from this kind of stuff. You know, if somebody touches it, usually it's very simple surface level stuff. So this is actually something that's relatively rare in Spider-Man mythos. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll see Crisis on Campus adapted, one of them at least. You know, like Night of the Prowler. Can we get something like that? I would be down. You know, like, this is genuinely exciting to me, and it is like not a lot of other stuff in this show. It's just doing something that isn't Spider-Man and shoving it into Spider-Man, and I don't think those parts gel very well. It is not bad per se, but I don't think it works as well. This is a core part of Spider-Man that just usually gets sidestepped. So this is by far my favorite part of the show. We're getting a look into Spider-Man parts that usually just everyone's too scared to touch. So, you know, kudos for this show to going there. This is just my first impressions based on the first 2 episodes. Some of my complaints may get addressed as the show goes on. Maybe they will mess up Lonnie's story and ruin it. Like, I don't know. Or maybe they will, you know, like fix this Peter Parker. Maybe he is an adrenaline junkie and not actually a good guy. I do overall like it so far as a show, but I'm not fully sold on it. I wouldn't call it good yet, but I am cautiously optimistic. It'll never be one of my favorite takes if this is the Peter Parker and this is genuinely what they're going for, and I'm not just misreading it, but that doesn't mean the show can still be decent around it. Like the Lonnie storyline, again, I'm very excited for that, so we'll see how it overall turns out. Let me know what your take is. You know, like, how are you feeling about the show? Because it is such an interesting take. Like, how far do you feel like a show like this has to be loyal to the original Peter Parker? Or any usual, like the general idea of Peter Parker? How far can you push it until it starts to feel like not Spider-Man anymore? To me, this show kind of has crossed that line in some areas, but in some areas it kind of comes back around, so it's in a very weird zone. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and, you know, like and subscribe and do all of that. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later.